Hi guys. Week number 3. I hope you had a great weekend. A Monday today, which means you're getting another video from me, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the things you submitted, uh, about the things you will have to submit, some updates, some news, and of course cover the chapters that we have to cover this week, which are chapters 4 and 5. Okay? All right, so I have my notes right here. Concerning your submissions, I'll start with LOs. LO 2, very good, 92% on average. LO 3, 80% on average, a little bit lower. I don't have any specific items that most of you missed, so I need to address them. I see some, like silly mistakes, like you were trying to rush it. All the answers to those questions are, even if you don't have the book, they're in the PowerPoint slideshows and in these videos. So just take your time. Concerning the learning games, in both of them, the percentage is 80%, a little bit lower than I expected, to be honest. But again, take your time. I don't think they're too challenging, right? I'm just trying to create some fun opportunities for you to go over the material and study. Okay, I'll share my screen, and let's go to our Moodle side. I hope you can see it. We're in week number 3, right? So for next week, for Sunday, you need to submit LO4, right? And learning game 4. LO5, and learning game 5. Okay, so 2 things for each chapter, which means 4 things in total. Now it's week 3, and I kind of predicted this one. I wanted to create a meeting. That's a synchronous meeting, which means we're gonna visit. It's gonna be in real time, and you will be able to talk with me, and I will be able to talk to you. It's not mandatory, right? I just want to talk with you, and I want to see how we've been doing, and if you have any ideas, if you have any feedback, if you have any concerns, if you have any questions, anything. I'll just want us to see each other, right? And if you can make it, it's fine. It's just an additional thing, and I'm just putting out there in case somebody wants to communicate with me. Um, I'm always available during office hours, which is tomorrow, right? And I'll try to have those synchronous meetings every 3 weeks. The 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, the 12th, and then not the 15th one, most likely the final week, okay? So if I click on it, it's this Wednesday at 9 o'clock. It will be for 45 minutes if we need the whole time. If we don't, we don't. And if you do attend, I'll give you 10 more points. Pretty cool, right? Okay. So I just want to make sure you all see this, and you know that this Wednesday, in 2 days time, we will have a synchronous meeting. Okay. All right. Now stop sharing this, and I'll start. I don't have anything else. I'll just start. Go ahead and start with our PowerPoint slideshows. Let me see. Share screen. All right, motivation. I'll go to slideshow mode, full screen. So today we have motivation. Let me see if my clicker works. Yes. And motivation is chapter 4, and then we'll have stress, anxiety, and some theories for chapter 5. All right, let's start. And most of the time we're going to be starting with, definitions and trying to understand what we're talking about. What is motivation? Motivation is related to direction and intensity. And I'm not going to be going over all the slides, but this is very important. Okay, what's the direction of effort? Direction means like where, in which situation, in which activity, uh, um, person, whatever you can put there. I'm gonna direct. I'm gonna put my effort. Okay, we have numerous choices, right? Let's say you're taking 5 courses a semester. Some like courses you may direct more effort compared to others, right? You have some friends, right? You have any kind of responsibilities. So where are you going to direct your effort? Your effort is not endless, correct? So where are you going to direct? That's one. And then the intensity of the effort. How much of it? Again, it's not endless. So I'm going to direct it this way, and I'm going to direct this much of it this way. So if you take this together, that can explain motivation. And I hope it makes sense. Now, we have different views. Trait means that's something that doesn't change. That's part of your characteristic, right? Situation is based on the situation, motivation level may change, and then the interaction, of course, which is the most popular. It's a combination of both. It's who you are and the situation or the environment you're in. Okay, and that's exactly you can see it here. That's exactly what we're talking about. Personal characteristics combined with the situational factors, and then if you put them together, then you can figure out down here the participant motivation. All right, so I'll give you an example. So we have an experiment with swimmers, right, in Canada. In there, they could either swim by themselves or in a relay race. And they recorded the times, and then they try to figure out based on motivation if they are people who are seeking social approval or people that are seeking more trying to avoid social rejection. Okay, and they found out that when you are approval oriented, it's better if you um, train with others. So the relays form would be the best option for you. If you are a person that trying to avoid rejection, you're threatened by rejection, social rejection, then you don't want to compare yourself to others and be in a situation like that, like in a relay. So you want to, the best option for you is to race by yourself, alone. What does it mean? Who cares? Well, that means that if tomorrow you're a coach, you can't take the fastest 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, and put them together in a relay race and expect to get the best result. Because you take the personal characteristics that have to do with the sport, but you don't take the personal characteristics that have to do with their psychology, their psyche. So you have to put the right people in the right environment, which is a proof that the interaction, the we talked right here, the interaction of you is the most complete, and that's a proof why we use it the most compared to the other two above. That. Good. All right. So we have traits. We have situation. We have to consider both, as you understand, and that's why we just explained by that example. People have multiple motives. So people, they can be in the same team. Have you ever played sports? Okay. Have you ever played sports in a team setting? Do you think that you all have the same motives. The fun fact, I don't know if it's fun, but it's interesting. You see some examples here for people participating in an exercise program, is that, and I'm going to come back to this, that people may have competing motives. So we're playing the same team. You are playing, your number one motive is for the team to win. My number one motive, and that's what I'm playing, is for my numbers to get better so I can get drafted. That can be problematic, right? But when we have multiple motives, as a coach, a lot of times we try to emphasize on the shared ones and then find some ways to satisfy the unique ones, especially if they're not competing with the ones that we just talked about, the shared ones. Does that make sense? Okay. Self-determination theory is a theory that has to do with motivation. We're going to talk about it more, I think, in chapter 7. Right? It's a huge theory. The acronym is SDT. Okay. And it says, you can see the 3 bullet points. It says that people are motivated because to satisfy those 3 general needs: competence, autonomy, and social connectedness. So people are trying to satisfy the need of being good at something. People are trying to satisfy the need of having at least a percentage of choice and the freedom to choose within the context of whatever they're participating. And also people have the need to feel part of the team. Okay, so excuse me, the self-determination theory, again, which is one theory, we're going to talk about more theories later on today, but we're going to analyze this one and others more in the chapters to come, says that, again, that people are trying and are motivated, they're really trying, they put the effort, as we said, and the intensity to satisfy these 3 general needs. Okay. What's the third guideline? Change environment, right? As we said, the environment, the situation is really important for motivation. It's not only the personal characteristics. So sometimes you can just change the environment, make it more motivational. Okay. Or, as you see, the last bullet point, put people with shared motives in the same groups. That will change the environment. Do the things that you can do to change the environment. Put a poster on the wall that motivates people to work out more. Okay? Take away the mirrors. If they don't like seeing themselves, they don't feel good about it, take them away for now. Just create an environment that is empowering. Lead by example. That's really important, obviously. In chapter 7, I think, again, it has to do with behavior modification. So if I play sports, let's say I'm 6, 7, 8 years old, I play sports for the wrong reasons. And by wrong reasons, let's say I play sports I play soccer so I can just beat my neighbor who's in the other team, or even hurt him or her, or, I'm not playing for the right motives. Then as a coach, I need to just try to change that. And there's specific ways to do that. But we're just mentioning today, we're gonna get into that like deeper in another chapter, I think chapter 7, if I'm not mistaken. All right, let's talk a little bit about this. The difference between achievement motivation and competitiveness. You see 2 definitions right here: person's orientation to strive for past success, and competitive disposition to strive for satisfaction when making comparisons with some standards. So the one on top is more, it has to do more about achieving something, okay? And you take that, you see pride in that accomplishment. And competitiveness has to do with comparisons. So the one in the beginning about achievement motivation is more personal, right? Has to do more with me. The other has to do with me compared to some standards that have to do a lot of times with others. It's the same thing as you can see here. That your motivation is self-comparison. The competitiveness is social compound. Okay. Okay, we have a lot of theories that do with motivation, and it is a fact that there's a lot of research in psychology, sports psychology, that has to do with motivation. Right? It's a very interesting subject. We talked about SDT, self-determination theory, and I'm gonna cover really quickly these four. We have the need achievement theory, attribution theory, achievement goal theory, and competence motivation theory. All right, here. This theory, the first theory, starts with the personality factors. Okay, are you trying to achieve success? Are you trying to avoid failure? That's really important and that's really basic. Now, if you take this one and you combine it with situational factors that either, let's say, there's a high risk, no, there's not like a high probability or low probability to be successful. For example, you're playing against Barcelona. That will have you will probably have lower probability of success compared to playing with, you know, no offense, our Plattsburgh team, soccer team, right? Now, the low probability of winning, how much value does it have for you? How much valuable would it be for you to actually beat Barcelona? Okay, so if you take those personal factors and then you take those situational factors and you put them together, we have, based on that theory, what? Your approach. So that will help you identify if you are a person that is more towards trying to approach success, or if you are a person that is trying to avoid failure, which then affect your emotional reactions. And we're going to talk about emotions today a lot, right? So are you trying to focus on the pride of success, or are you trying to focus on the shame of failure? At the end of the day, this theory will distinguish people to high achievers and low achievers. High achievers will have that behavior that you see up top: seek out achievement situations, look for challenges, enhance performance. The low achievers are trying to avoid achievement situations. So these people are not trying to play with the better players. They don't see it as challenging. They're scared. So they're trying to put themselves in situations that, there's a high probability of them winning. Because the most important thing for them is to avoid failure. That's their motive. Okay? So the low achievers avoid achievement situations, avoid risks, and perform poorly. So think, what are you based on this theory? Attribution theory, here we have, it's not about successes and failures, it's how you explain them, okay? And it's about stability, it's about causality, locus of causality, and it's about locus of control. So, for example, stability, a stable factor would be your talent. An unstable factor would be luck, right? Causality, it can be internal or external. So here, internal can be your effort in those last minutes, and external can be you will just you had to play the not very challenging opponent today. Okay. And control, again, it can be something that you can control, like you didn't have a good strategy for that race, or you did. Or it can be something you couldn't control, which is your opponent's plan or conditioning, or the weather, okay? So you end up here in a situation where you explain win or loss based on stability, locus of causality, and locus of control. Again, stable, unstable, internal, external, in one's control, out of one's control. And you see here the psychological result, because again, it is based on how you explain. What's the explanation when you're winning, and what's your explanation when you're losing? okay? What's any press conference after a game? We'll have NBA finals now, NBA the postseason. Excuse me. Watch how people explain failure and how people explain success. That says a lot. You see that uh, when we talk about stability, if it's stable, increase expectation of success, unstable, decrease. Internal, increase pride or shame. External, decrease pride or shame. Okay? If you can't control, if you think you can control the factors, you have increased motivation. If you think you couldn't control the factors, you have decreased motivation. Okay, so that theory has to do, again, of how you perceive, how you explain success and failure based on stability, causality, and control. Achievement goal theory, again, we have here interpretation, but here we have interpretation of one person of what it takes to achieve that success. Okay, but what's success for me may not be success for you. Okay, maybe you're going for placement, maybe I'm going for a time. Who knows? Now, some examples: ego, goal orientation, comparing performance with and defeating others; task orientation, if you can compare your performance today with past performances; and social goal is if your performance will help you be recognized or liked by others. Um, yeah, we can even talk about that. Entity view of your achievements. You have an outcome goal. That's where you focus, right? Where you see your ability as fixed and unable to change through effort. You have that increment of focus that you put so much effort and hard work and effort, everything is possible. Little by little, you become better, and so on and so forth. And then you have that approach goal orientation where you focus on achieving the competence, compared to avoidance goal orientation where you're focusing on avoiding incompetence. Okay. All right. That's all right. And then the last theory is the competent motivation theory. People are motivated for what they're competent, and that's supporting the perception of competence and control. Though that's what we focus on. And if you have that enhancing perceived competence and control, that's something that you should be focusing on as a professional. Nothing very important here. All right, so when we talk about developing motivation, right, and when we talk about developing motivation, we have three stages. And those three stages usually we go from autonomous to social to integrated. Autonomous, you compare yourself to yourself if you know something or not. Social, you compare yourself to others. And then the integrated one, you compare yourself to yourself and to other states. That's the optimal one. We don't have a specific age that we reach that one, but we are trying to push people if we are into developing that motivation and competitiveness into that third integrated stage. This figure here will help you understand what I'm talking about. Autonomous, and then we go to social comparison, and then we go to the integrated again. No specific age of going into the integrated stage, but that's the one that we're looking for, and that's why we're just like the one that we're pushing forward. Okay, nothing that I definitely need to cover. And that's our chapter 4. Okay, I will stop sharing this. I hope you're ready. One more chapter. Okay. All right. I'll close this and I'll go to chapter 5. It's a little bit shorter, but we have some theories in there as well. Let's see, share screen, chapter 5, and share. Okay. Full screen. Excellent. Now, arousal, stress, anxiety. Okay. As I said 20 minutes ago, we're going to be starting with definitions. Arousal and anxiety have some commonalities. And here I want to focus on both of them have physiological and psychological activation or response. Okay, something happens physiologically, heart rate, and psychologically, some thoughts, emotions. Let's say about emotions. Okay, that's the common ground they share. Okay, arousal though can be positive and can be negative, and we usually talk about performance for us for this course. Anxiety is usually perceived as negative, even if it doesn't affect performance that much. But anxiety has a negativity attached to it. Arousal can be positive or negative. That's the difference. Both share that physiological and psychological activation. All right? Okay. State anxiety. This has to do with a response to a specific situation. Okay? Test anxiety. There's a test, you get anxious. Okay? And as I said before, there's a somatic, right, physiological component, which we call somatic state anxiety, and there is a psychological component, which has to do with thoughts, and we call it cognitive state anxiety. So you see cognitive state anxiety is the degree to which one worries or has negative thoughts, and somatic concerns the moment-to-moment changes in perceived physiological activation, blood pressure, for example, okay? And what's perceived control state anxiety? The degree to which one believes one has the resources and ability to meet the challenges. And we're going to go deeper in a little bit and explain this one. Trait anxiety is something that it doesn't really change, and I don't know if you know anybody that is most of the time they're anxious. That's trait anxiety. It has nothing to do, for the most part, with the situation. It's not situational. Okay, it's a personality disposition, a personality characteristic. Okay. And as just the second dot, high versus low trait anxious people usually have more state anxiety in highly evaluative situations, which I think it makes sense. This is how you measure it. You can download for free most of those scales or questionnaires. All right, let's talk about emotions. Emotions, again, have both components, the physiological and the psychological one, right? And we see, again, we start with the definition: organized psychophysiological reaction to ongoing relationships with the environment, most often but not always interpersonal or social, involving subjective experiences, observable actions or impulses to act, and physiological change. All right, let's break it down a little bit. We can have positive and negative, okay, emotions, right? And common emotions, as you see, anger and anxiety are negative ones. Happiness, love, gratitude, compassion, positive ones. Okay, I think that makes sense. And for us, we're going to focus on emotions and how that affects exercise and sport performance. All right, let's stop here for a second. So something is happening. Something is happening right now, and it's challenging. Okay, if you think that you have the resources, whatever resources are needed to respond effectively to that challenge, then you won't have that imbalance. You're not going to end up stressed. If you don't, for any kind of reasons, right, then you will end up stressed because there will be an imbalance between what you think or is needed and what you think you have. So what's needed is more than what you have, you end up stressed. If it's the other way around, then you're good. You can deal with it. Are we cool with that? All right. So that's what we're talking about. There's some kind of demand. Then you go and you perceive what's going on outside in the environment, and you're trying to perceive what you have, as you can see, and based on that comparison, you have some response. And as you can see, it can be arousal, it can be state anxiety, it can be muscle tension, attention changes, and so on and so forth. And based on that, your behavior will change. And that can be anything. That could be like a flat tire. Anything. Anything. You can just, if I want to take it into sports, like it's the last 2 seconds, and you get fouled, and you go to the line, and you have 2 free throws, and if you make them, you win the championship. If you think that you have what it takes for this challenge, for that demand, environmental demand, then you're not going to end up stressed. If you don't, you will. If you will end up stressed, that will affect your performance, as we will see in a little bit, or your behavior, in this case, your performance, because, for example, of like increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, muscle tension, you won't be able to regulate your attention. So your performance most likely will go down. Okay? All right. What can affect stress and anxiety? The event performance. As I said, if you just you compare a championship game, the same situation with the 2 free throws and a pickup game, who cares, right? So the more important the game is, the higher the probability of getting stress. Uncertainty, same thing. If you're ready for it, yes. If you feel uncertain about what's going to happen, then again, you will end up most likely more stressed. If you have trait anxiety, self-esteem, low self-esteem, high stress. High social physical anxiety. If you have social physical anxiety about how you look and how you think people perceive you, concerning of how you look, that again affects your stress and anxiety in a negative way. It will go up, right? The more trait anxiety you have, most likely the more anxiety you'll have for whatever situation comes up. Okay? All right. A lot of theories. I'll try to break it down and talk about most of them. If you have any questions, office hours tomorrow and synchronous meeting on Wednesday. All right, drive theory. Now, bless me. Okay, now, if you know something very well, right, and you get challenged, your performance will get better. So you use anxiety in a positive way or arousal. If you don't know something very well and I put you on the spot, then the reverse thing will happen, correct? And as you can see, as a note, we have the social facilitation theory that we're going to talk about later on. And it says that if you really know something and people are there, most likely you'll perform better. If you don't know something and people are there, not so much. And that's why as a coach tomorrow, if you know your athlete doesn't know very well how to perform something, you don't put them in front of people. That's not good, right? You let them practice by themselves until they're ready and so on and so forth. So that's how we learn about psychology. So tomorrow when we apply whatever as coaches, as trainers, we can pick the best option. All right, and that again talks about, well, let's talk a little bit about home field advantage that has to do the same thing. We usually talk about advantage when we're playing at home, right? Well, research says yes, when the game is not extremely important, very important. When the game is really important, like playoffs, we're not sure if playing at home is actually an advantage because the numbers, the statistics do not really show that like in a very clear way. Okay. All right. Inverted U theory. Inverted U theory, as you see, we have 2 axes. We have performance and physiological arousal. And it says that in the beginning, as we start from 0 all the way to the left or the bottom, and we take arousal and we start like arousal is going up, performance is going up, arousal is going up, performance going up, arousal is going up, performance going up to a point. And that's the highest point, as you see. After that point, right in the middle, you know, if arousal keeps going up, performance going down and lower, no, all the way down. So inverted U theory says arousal can be positive, but also can be negative. And concerning performance, it depends on how much. Okay, that doesn't explain everything. And the inverted U hypothesis in arousal, we don't really accept it anymore. It's one of the old theories. IZOF. So we have an optimal zone of functioning, and it's individualized. Individualized zone of optimal performance or functioning. And here it's different. It's different because it shows mainly two things that I want you to remember. We're not talking about one point. We're talking about zones. You see zones. So if you take those zones down, like in the athlete B, for example, if you take it down, the best performance for athlete B would be from 40 to 50 level, right? Athlete C from 50 to 60, and athlete A from 30 to 40. So it's not a point, it's a zone, and it's not the same for everybody. Now, if you're playing a team sport, good luck. How are you gonna create an environment that satisfies all three of them, and you can get, you know, the best performance of all three athletes at the same time? Multidimensional anxiety theory, we have the cognitive anxiety, thoughts, somatic, physiological. And it says that concerning the cognitive is negatively related to performance. Somatic, it does do that in very few, but you have to take them together. So you end up with this. And if low anxiety is, if worry, low cognitive anxiety is low, right? It looks like that in very few theory that we showed before. If it doesn't, if it's high, you go to the right side diagram that you see there, and we talk about catastrophe. You know, we start, you know, when arousal is low, performance is low, arousal is going up, you know, we're going towards point A, performance is going up to a point, and then it starts going down, and then it falls really fast, right? And that's the catastrophe theory that says that after a point, when the cognitive anxiety is really, really high and the physiological arousal keeps going up, then you reach a point that you just fail completely. You just frozen, catastrophe, right? And then you reach that point B. And from that point B, you're trying to recover, or the coach or the mental coach is trying to help you recover and go backwards and start going towards A, because you see the arrow going backwards now. Not very popular. Reversal theory, it depends on individual interpretation. And in psychology, we're going to talk about interpretation and perception a lot, okay? So if you interpret your arousal as pleasant, that's good. If you interpret it as unpleasant, that's bad. So it can either facilitate performance or hurt performance. That depends on your interpretation. Again, not too much evidence to support it. Here we have an anxiety performance relationship that has to do with the direction and the intensity, which has to do with what we covered already. And in this theory, we have that called facilitative anxiety and debilitative anxiety. Okay, again, we have to consider both of them, how much anxiety you feel and your interpretation of that anxiety. If it is, you see it as a positive thing or as a negative. Nothing too important here. That's what we already covered that again. Something is happening to you, a stressor, any kind of stressor. You feel like you can control it, that's good. It's facilitated. You feel you can't control it for any reason, Like that's your own perception, right? Maybe you can do it, but you think you cannot do it. Then it's debilitating. Mm, yeah, nothing too important here. These are pretty much take-home points, bringing together all the theories. This is something I just want to mention. I'm mentioning it already. When arousal or anxiety or all these emotions, how they affect, and why is that important, like psychology-wise? I already talked about muscle tension. If you feel like stressed, you tense a lot. If you tense a lot, and I put you there at the line for those 2 free throws, that will mess up with your technique. If it messes up with your technique, there's a high percentage of you missing it, right? Fatigue is another thing, coordination difficulties, if we see from that perspective, attention. We're going to talk about attention more in other chapters. We're just going to mention it today. So attention has to do with concentration and visual sets. I shouldn't be mentioning it twice. Here you see the optimal. You see if it's too wide, too broad, right? And you can see if it's too specific. Imagine you are a quarterback and you are in the C option because you're stressed and you just look at one thing and then you don't pay attention to a 350-pound person that's coming after you, going to destroy you in seconds. Okay. Of course, a lot of times in sports, it's not the optimal changes. So you may go from wide to broad to narrow and vice versa. But if you're stressed, what we know as a certainty is that that will affect your attention and your concentration in a negative way. Okay. Yeah, you have to take into consideration both personal factors and situational factors, and that's something that we'll mention a lot because that's a basic, even like an axiom like that we have in psychology and in a lot of theories, and it concerns a lot of things. So we apply them a lot. These are some symptoms that you can see on yourself or others, players, teammates. And I'm going to stop sharing. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I told you about what you have to submit until next Sunday. And I also mentioned the Zoom meeting this Wednesday at 9 in the morning for 45 minutes. Don't forget tomorrow, office hours from 8 to 12:30, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll send you again a reminder tomorrow, hours before we go online. Have a great week. In the meantime, live intentionally, not habitually. Bye, guys.